Hi, Dr. P here to talk about the failure of cause and effect. So I'm going to talk about the disjunction of cause and effect in games and in other entertainment and in the world in general. Now, what do I mean here? Traditionally and logically, a cause is followed by its effect. But so often this connection no longer exists, at least in the minds of many people. They posit causes that don't exist, or effects that have no causes. We can start with games. There are games that lack player agency. Agency in games means the player's actions make a significant difference in what happens. There is no player agency, for example, in Candyland or Left, Right, Center or other entirely random games. Games, which are usually video games that put the player on rails and force him or her to follow a path, lack agency. The player has no choice in practice, or the choices make no difference. Practically speaking, the player cannot cause anything significant. In such games, we see a long-term disjunction of cause and effect. No matter what the player does, the effect ends up the same. Now, this was especially noticeable with Mass Effect 3. This video game series touted how players could make a difference to the outcome, but at the end of the third game, the last of the trilogy, all of their choices made virtually no difference. The uproar among fans was immense, so immense the developers changed the game, as I recall. Now let's move away from games, TV and movies. Movies, and especially TV, routinely fly in the face of reality in order to get a shocking reveal. And much of this is nonsense, and there's also vast inconsistency. Something will work one way one time and a different way another time. Standards have changed, evidently. When I was a kid, things were expected to make sense. Now it seems to be it's all right that cause and effect no longer works at times. Fantasy rules, not reality, even in real-world stories. I call this cheating and lazy writing, and it's the norm, really, not the exception, which may be why I don't watch much TV. Even in novels, we've seen this creep in. TV and film tends to be drivel, though I like movies with swords, explosions, or magic spells. But I want them to be logical, to make sense. Yet so often they don't. Even in novels, cheating is rampant. And by cheating here I mean leaving huge plot holes, constant retconning, having people not react according to what they know, or to their character. In other words, the writer making things happen that they want to happen, not that necessarily would logically happen from the causes that they have presented. So the question is, what happened to reality? You know, even the reality shows on TV, I suspect, have scripts. I don't know, but I do not believe that the people who are in those so-called reality shows are acting without some kind of indication of how they're supposed to act and some kind of plan ahead of time. And I have one case where somebody has told me as though they know, but I don't know how reliable that is. So, in general, cause and effect are ignored, and this is a symptom of indulgence in wishful thinking. What someone wants to be true rather than what is true. So we have facts versus wishful thinking, and this wishful thinking has a lot to do with the failure of cause and effect. I think that the further we get from World War II, the more people ignore history and rely on wishful thinking instead of reality. They try to ignore all the ugliness of history, except when it suits them, as an extreme anti-slavery, culminating in destruction of statues of people who often were neither slaveholders nor pro-slavery. Not just Confederate generals, but U.S. Grant and Abraham Lincoln. There's a rejection of logic and facts. Stephen Glenn, a game designer, once posted on Twitter, quote, "Some people are genuinely offended by logic and reason. Furthermore, trying to appeal to those people with logic and reason is akin to throwing water on a grease fire, unquote. Well, I'd call these people fools and idiots. If you don't have logic and reason, you have nothing reliable to depend on. Emotion by its very nature cannot be reliably used to solve problems. Emotion isn't even intended to solve problems, I guess you could say. Intuition in the long run still depends on reason. In politics and religion, we see this a lot. Even the President of the United States is a known pathological liar and extreme narcissist. He ignores facts and believes what he wants to believe. Politicians pass bills without thinking about long-term consequences, which are effects, only about votes and ideology. And religion is always self-delusional, but today religionists try to force their view of how life should work on everyone. And conspiracy theories, of course, are rampant. Conspiracy theories come from a failure to understand causality, failure to recognize what causes other things to happen. Yes, people can cause a lot of things to happen, but most of what happens is unintended. And yet conspiracy theorists believe that everything that happens is caused by some intelligence, someone. For example, the movement of manufacturing jobs away from the U.S. is not a conspiracy. It's not a deliberate plan to tread on the working class. It's the result of historical forces, mainly money, and money is a big historical force. When it's cheaper to manufacture offshore owing to the cost of living and then ship to the U.S., then for-profit companies are going to manufacture offshore. It's inevitable. And it's not that somebody has decided to screw the workers. We see a lot of people who are believers in nothing evident. The people who believe in conspiracies are as much into a religion of belief as Christians or Muslims or other religionists, and just as likely to be wrong. It's belief based on nothing, no evidence, no reason. And that's why I say that inveterate conspiracy theorists are ignorant or stupid or both. Belief that everything happens for a reason, rather than understanding that the world is a sum of much chance and randomness, is a big problem. The world is not the sum of some kind of direction by some personified forces. There are certainly causes, but causes do not need to have reasons attached that humans understand. Causes don't have to be caused consciously by humans. It can be a byproduct of what they're doing in their own self-interest. So what we have collectively done has made it likely that manufacturing moves overseas. As the world changes, that's what is likely to happen. But no one's reason or control are involved. There's not overall direction by anyone. Humans aren't that smart. So the failure that comes in the title of this piece is ultimately a failure to deal with reality, a failure to seek or even care about truth, a failure to understand how the world works. Reliance on feelings and wishful thinking is the ultimate entitlement as well. If you behave like that in dangerous situations, you're much more likely to get dead or to get seriously hurt. As in the pandemic, of course, where we have idiots not wearing masks for no reasons other than they're entitled. I imagine that they mostly stop at red lights and stop at stop signs, but they won't wear masks. Idiots. But wishful thinking is easy and comforting in the short run. Thinking is hard. Emoting is easy. Narcissism is rampant. Reasonableness has gone out of fashion because so few rely on reason, which depends on logic, reality, facts, and truth, not on feelings and wishful thinking. Until we can change this, we, the United States, are in big trouble. Thanks for listening.